Have you ever felt your heart race, palm sweat, or voice falter when it's your turn to speak in a group meeting or on stage? You're not alone. Public speaking is one of the most common fears in the world. In fact, it's ranked higher than the fear of death. In today's episode, we're joined by Soulful Speaking Coach Lauri Smith, who's here to help us learn how this fear can hold us back from really stepping into our full potential and how public speaking can be a transformative practice. Welcome to Tell Me More and Then Some.
I'm Alina.
And I'm Angeline.
Join us as we dive deep into the topics that fuel our conscious evolution and keep us learning as students of life.
We invite you to come along and share the ride. We hope you're empowered to learn and grow into the best and most authentic version of yourself. We're so happy you're here. Let's go. Hello, friends. We're honored and excited to be joined by our special guest, Lauri Smith. Lauri is a speaker, the creator of the Vocal Presence Path approach to soulful speaking, host of the Soulful Speaking podcast, and the author of Your Voice Matters, a guide to speaking soulfully when it counts. She helps sensitive visionaries, ambitious empaths, and loving rebels to speak, be seen, and fulfill their soul's calling. Lauri treats speaking as a spiritual practice that raises consciousness by healing old wounds, guiding us home to our true selves. Her mission is to call forth more open-hearted leaders to do their part to change the world with authenticity, creativity, and courage. She envisions a world in which everyone shares the vibration of their soul's purpose with the world through their voices, and together we reach global harmony. Lauri can always see the soul underneath the static, which makes her really good at motivating people to fight their inner demons and find tremendous inner power. Lauri, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Angeline. It's great to be here.
It's great to be here too.
We're so excited to have you.
Yeah. So fun story in terms of how we know Lauri. I worked with Lauri back in 2020 when the pandemic happened, when I kind of had this moment where I'm like, after my mom passed, I think it was more of like what is my purpose? Like, who am I? I was like a lost soul. And you did a lot to help me find my voice, tell my story, just make me feel more comfortable with who I am. And I'll always be grateful for that. So you've been
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm grateful. I loved working with you and love continuing to be in your life.
Ditto. Yes. And Lauri hosts these lovely magic connections, she calls it, bi-weekly, I believe, where you just bring in the best people and we just have such wonderful conversations, and we can talk about all of that at the end of the episode when where to find you. Awesome. This topic is really exciting.
Girl, absolutely. So why don't we begin with asking you, Lauri, why you think public speaking is such a universal fear?
I can tell you one of the things that I've heard and one that is more in my experience. The one that I've heard is that years and years ago, when we were all like hunter-gatherers and you really needed your tribe, like if you got ousted from the tribe, it was life or death. And I have been told that that is still, it's in our DNA and it's getting passed from generation to generation. So it's in the tissue, which to me, I'm like, I believe part of that is true because sometimes it seems completely illogical. Like your mind knows you are safe. And yet there will be this visceral fear of, if I stand out, if I say something wrong, I'm going to die. And it is supposedly, every time it's studied, it is people's number one fear, even more than death. But I think it's because we think we are going to die. What I believe is combined with that, or more present with my clients these days, is people desperately want to be seen. And being seen also means being heard and being understood. And we're also really afraid of it because we're really afraid of taking the risk and being rejected. And when you get up on a stage or go on a podcast, the rejection in today's world can mean the people that are there in the room with you. And it could also mean like you share a video and somehow the haters come out and start commenting on our video. And I also think most of us went to high school.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, and just about everybody dealt with bullying in high school. So there is a fight, flight, or freeze that can come up around bullying anywhere in our lives where being seen was actually dangerous. So if you met a bully in high school, one of the best strategies is not to be seen. If you
Right.
can make yourself small and not noticed, the bully will pick on someone else. So you either fight them back, you make yourself invisible. Those are or you fawn, there's fight, flight, freeze, fawn. You could fawn, you can align with the bully so that when they're in their attacking mode, they attack someone else. And that can follow us and absolutely becomes a muscle memory of when something feels important, I'm going to hide. But then all of a sudden you're feeling called to speak. So you're in that push pull of, I want to be seen, I want to be understood, and I'm also terrified at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and one would think that the more you practice, right, the more that you do it, the more confident you would become. Like, that's what I would think. But you hear sort of over and over again, professionals, right? I think we talked about this a little bit, right? Like artists, singers, who, go on stage, go on tour, and they're still terrified. And I think there's sort of an ebb and flow. Even when I think of myself, if I'm public speaking, like my heart is racing, I'm terrified. I tell myself all these things to believe that everything's going to be okay, that I'm not going to die, right? Um, but and then a few minutes into it, I'm like, oh, I'm good. I kind of find my flow state. Um, but I don't know why in my mind I think that if you're Beyonce, done 1,000 concerts, that at some point it just becomes intuitive and second nature. And so I think the mind is a fascinating thing where, we always go back to that state of, oh my God, I'm in danger. What do I need to do to survive?
Yeah. And part of what I would love to reframe for the world is the Western world. If you're feeling anything, it's like there's this old TV show, the original Lost in Space. There was a remake. I'm not talking about that one. There was an old Lost in Space where there was this android who used to go, "Danger, Will Robinson, danger." And in the Western world, whenever we're feeling anything, there's a part of us that's going, "Danger, Alina, danger." And some of what we're feeling is actually what can become our charisma. We're labeling it as bad because that part is saying that feeling anything is dangerous.
Mm.
Speaking, really great speaking, the charismatic people, where Beyonce, I haven't ever seen her live, but I'll assume where she gets to live is that she harnesses all of that sensation into her charisma. And if you want that kind of speaking or performing where it's vibrant and alive and the audience is hanging on your every word, it's going to feel more like a roller coaster ride than like sitting on your couch watching Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the people that I come across who say, "Oh, yeah, I used to be nervous, but now I'm not." I look at them and they look numb. They look dead. They've suppressed rather than harnessing. So they do look the same as they probably look when they're sitting on their couch watching Netflix, rather than like someone who is vibrant and alive from head to toe that you can't take your eyes off of. So it's learning to reframe all that sensation as like raw paint colors that you can paint with, to become comfortable in the discomfort, to understand that it is going to feel like a roller coaster where you're going tuk, 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 tuk. And like during this part of the roller coaster, you're a little scared, a little excited. And then whoosh, once you're on the roller coaster ride, most of the time it feels amazing and it's thrilling and it's an adventure. Still doesn't feel the same as watching Netflix.
Yeah. I just that reminded me of a quote or something Alina would say to me, about anxiety. You would say, anxiety is just excitement that has nowhere to go." And I feel like that's very similar to what you're saying, like the sensations. and how
Yeah.
that kind of boil into our charisma if we allow it to, instead of shutting it down.
Yeah. Yeah. And someone, when I was doing my voice training for theater, he did a study, and basically his study showed that anxiety and fear are very similar to the body as what we would describe as excitement. It's just that when you're excited, you're already doing the thing. So all that stuff has somewhere to go. Anxiety is excitement with nowhere to go yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I joke about this, but I think it's part of my like neuroscience background. I trick my brain into believing what I want it to believe, right? So if I tell my brain, "Oh, I'm super nervous. I'm super anxious about this. I'm so scared." I'm like, then I'm going to be anxious and I'm going to be scared, right? But if
Yeah.
I tell myself, "I'm so excited and I'm terrified," right? Like I'll be terrified about public speaking or whatever it is. But I'll say to myself, I'm so excited. I'm so pumped. I'm lying to myself, but I say it until I believe it and until my body sort of follows suit. And that's why, Angeline, I would say to you, it's
Yeah.
excitement. It has nowhere to go because it kind of feels the same, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
excitement and anxiety kind of feel the same.
Yeah. And there was a study, I apologize in this moment, I cannot remember who did it, where they took 3 different groups and they broke each of those 3 groups down into 2 groups. So people taking a math test, people singing, and public speakers. Half of the group, they said, keep saying, I want to calm down. I'm so nervous, I need to calm down. And the other half of each group, they said, keep saying to yourself, I'm so excited I finally get to take this math test. I'm so excited I get to speak in public. I'm so excited I get to sing for these people. And in every single case, both subjectively and objectively, the people who were in coaching, we would call it reframing rather than lying to yourself, that both are true. You are scared and excited. So you're choosing to focus on excited. The people taking the math test scored higher who were saying, I'm so excited I finally get to take this math test. The singers did better. The audience said they liked the ones more who were focusing on the excitement. They also tested their pitches, which is not subjective, it's purely objective. The ones who were saying, I'm so excited I get to sing for this crowd, were more pitch perfect. They were on pitch. And for public speaking, it was purely objective. They scored all of them as having more charisma than the ones who were saying, I need to calm down. I'm so nervous, I need to calm down, versus I'm so excited I get to do this thing. And because the states are such neighboring states, it works. Your body will eventually go, okay, I can get on board with calling this excitement. I like to ask my clients to say scare-sided or nerve-sided so that both, the part of them that's like, screw that, I'm scared. It's, I like mixing words together.
Yeah. Well, we just unlocked it. Just change your mindset and say you're excited. You're good.
And you're good.
Well, that's fascinating. I love you. You've dubbed these 4, we hear saboteurs a lot. And I know you call them soul suckers, right? There are these, I would love to just hear from you and you share with the audience what these soul suckers are and the characteristics of the 4. I believe there are 4.
Yeah. They are a type of inner critic. We have our wise adult selves, and then there's all kind of other parts in us. And the soul suckers are the inner critics that suck the soul out of our voices, which either leaves us unable to speak, unable to chime in a meeting, unable to say yes to recording a podcast, unable to saying yes to giving a more formal speech, or we're speaking, but we're kind of showing up as a masked up version of ourselves, and we're moving and talking, and it doesn't feel authentic. It doesn't feel like the real us. We're kind of doing it, but letting the soul suckers drive how we do it so that it's very protected rather than very authentic and connected.
All right. These soul suckers sound really, really kind. Do you want to give us an overview of the 4 soul suckers?
They're not always kind. They have the best intentions and they're not always kind. The sort of beginning wave of soul suckers are the nervous Nellies. They're all looking for something to be not enough. That's a common theme of all 4. The nervous Nellies are usually telling us that we don't have enough time to say yes. There's not enough time in the meeting for us to chime in. We don't have enough money for the thing, or we don't have enough energy to speak. Something kind of light is not enough. If we get past those and we say yes to speaking, there's sort of 2 that might kick in next. The controlling stage mothers might kick in, and they're going to control and over plan very much from the head how we're going to do the thing that we said yes to. So speakers who write out the whole entire thing and read it, or spend 90 hours working on their slideshow and then literally bury their face and just read everything on the slide. Those controlling stage mothers are way in control with them. The imposter monsters might be there at the same time as the controlling stage mothers. They tell us that we're not enough for some specific reason, like I'm not old enough, young enough, experienced enough, wise enough, educated enough, pretty enough, you name it. And then the last, what I call the meanest, deepest ones, are the below the belt bastards. They will tell us that we're not enough, period. Nobody cares what we have to say. And there is usually a kernel of truth to each of their messages. For example, the imposter monsters are saying, I'm different. If the soul suckers take that message and run with it, they're going to try to make me try to appear prettier or focus on my outfit or get a gazillion degrees before I use my voice in a meeting or speak. The kernel of the message, I'm different, is actually a good thing, because there are 8 billion people on the planet. And if we're going to improve life on planet Earth, we need all the voices in the conversation. So if my soul is in charge, it's going to go, I'm different. I have a different presence than Angeline. I have a different presence than Alina. I see things differently. And I'm going to chime in and I'm going to own all of those differences. And they are valuable without making your unique traits less. The soul is like, we are all different and we need all of us and we're all amazing and awesome. The below the belt bastards, I was writing my book a little over 10 years ago now, and I was teaching a group program, and I said, there's no kernel of truth to the below the belt bastards. And someone taking the program said, I beg to differ. So now my soul suckers are going, oh my God, this is worthless. I can't release the book. And in theater, if you've ever done any improv, you're trained to say yes and tell me more. And right. It becomes like a part of you. So even though part of me was going, I need to completely rewrite that chapter, if not the whole book, out of my mouth came, oh, interesting, tell me more. And she said, the below the belt bastards are saying no one cares what you have to say. The truth is somebody somewhere doesn't or didn't care what you have to say. And then, of course, I went, oh, thank you so much. You're totally right. I'm adding that into the book. And it's been really liberating for me personally to know when I go to speak in front of a crowd, there are going to be some people who don't vibe with me. We're not each other's people. They, quote unquote, don't care what I have to say in this moment, possibly ever in this lifetime. So stop chasing them and start focusing on the ones who are vibing with me and do care what I have to say. And also to know that that trigger for me has come from, at some point, I ran up to somebody in my life with like, look at me, I got an A+ on the test. And got met with like looking at a sibling who in that moment, like they needed the parent more or something like that. And that's why I have this, like, I really want to be heard. And if I
Yeah.
feel like people are not hearing me, it can trigger things. So knowing like that's in my past. And when I'm in front of an audience, some people are not going to vibe with me and I don't need to chase them.
Yeah.
I really, I love that because I'll typically say they're just not my tribe, and it took me a really long time to figure out that I'm not everyone's cup of tea, and that's okay. And that if that person doesn't care for me or care for what I have to say, then they're just not my tribe.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But I think for me, growing up, like what was really resonating with me when you were speaking is I had really critical, I don't want to say parents, but I had a really critical mother. And so it's like everything that I did, and it came from love, right, was nitpicked on.
Mhm.
And so as a little girl, you start to learn that you're not good enough, or nothing that you do or the way that you look, or the way that you perform in school, that's never good enough. And that's sort of lived with me throughout my life.
Mhm.
And so in school, at work, there's always that voice in the back of my mind saying, well, you're not good enough, you know,
Mhm.
to work harder, you need to do better, even though, as my friend would say, there's no history of that, right? Like I would say things like, oh my gosh, what if I fail this class? And she'd say, have you ever failed a class?
Mhm.
Where's the data?
Where's the data?
Yeah.
Right, precisely.
Mhm.
And um, it was just my imposter monsters, right, going in and saying, you're going to fail, you're going to fail. And so it's taken, I still struggle. I still have moments, especially at work meetings, where there are just people that are bulldozing the conversation. And I'm just like, God, can I get in to say something? Because I know I have something important to say. Do I say it? Do I not? Um, but it's work. I think I'm work in progress, but
I think we're all a work in progress. I think I see speaking as a, like, relationships, like money, it is a spiritual journey.
Yeah.
It's connected to relationships.
Well,
It's
right.
a
Especially
spiritual
going back to
journey
the
that,
different thing.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so then Alina, it sounds like what you're saying, if you had to pick out of the four uh, soul suckers, imposter monster seems a little more the most resonant, perhaps for you.
I would say so. Gosh, maybe even below the belt.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know.
I was thinking that below the belt bastard. Yeah, I'm curious, Lauri, like based on your work with clients, do people mostly have all four of the soul suckers that come in at different times depending on the context? Or, it is it I'm assuming it's possible to say I deal a lot with the controlling stage mom, right? I'd love to hear about like what you see typically in your clients when they're speaking.
I feel like all four show up and it depends on what time of life or possibly how rebellious the person is. So there are some people that will not go to controlling stage mother because, or even imposter monsters, where like they've got an antidote to it because of some other trait that they've developed in their life. I know I have all four.
Yeah.
And most of my clients, most have dealt with at least three of the four, if not all four of them.
Yeah. I'm curious and would love to shift a little bit into we are now, obviously, since the pandemic, moving more and more into a remote virtual world, right? I mean, clearly look at us now.
Mhm.
Um, do you feel or see any difference between speaking in person versus speaking virtually in regards to the level of fear or nervousness that people can have? Because, keynotes are now given remotely even, right?
Mhm.
So I don't know if you've seen any sort of difference in folks' feelings around that.
I would say it depends on the person. So some people would say that they're fine on Zoom. Again, I would want to see them speak to unpack what does fine mean. Does it mean that you truly know how to connect and transform the energy in a Zoom room? Because that's very different than doing it live in the same space. They experience less sensations on Zoom. For some people, they might be empaths. So they literally feel what other people feel physically, emotionally, or energetically. So Zoom may be easier for them because there's a separation between all of your stuff that you've got going on as an audience and me. So they're able to kind of find a sweet spot because of the distance, and they're still able to actually create authentic connection. And for others, when that green camera light is looking at them, that is worse because it's more focused. They feel more magnified. And the lack of connection makes it feel like I'm on the spot and there is no or less immediate connection for me to eventually lean into.
Right.
So it really depends on the person and which one is triggering them more and why and what are their skills that they already know how to use. So some of the people who are empaths and might have found themselves overwhelmed by an in-person audience, when they learn how to harness all that stuff that's going on, that becomes their superpower when they used to call it a problem that needed to be solved.
Yeah.
I mean, if you are an empath, right? Because do you have any advice for those folks who really do feel the presence of a room, large or small? Do you have any, like I've had friends give me different tips on how to sort of protect my energy and I guess my peace. I don't know. So that I can get through the presentation and not have a mental breakdown. But is there any advice that you would give to those folks?
Yeah. It's my framework these days. I love to give it in 3 words and then kind of unpack what the 3 words mean. Intend, align, invite. And the pieces of that are really important for the empaths, the intention. So when we don't take the time to set one, our soul suckers, our other parts like soul suckers, inner protectors, inner teenager, inner child, one of them is going to set an unconscious intention. So if my controlling stage mothers take the wheel and set the intention, they're saying things like, don't screw it up. And if I'm focusing on not screwing it up, I'm going to quote unquote screw it up because that's where I'm focused. So setting an intention for what we want the audience to feel. And then invite is the bookend to that. Now we're inviting them to feel that thing. And we're looking out there and we're looking for signs of them shifting toward feeling more of that thing. And my favorite example for this is a networking meeting. If our soul suckers set the intention, they're like, don't screw it up. Make sure to cram in as much information as possible to prove that you are worthy enough for them to want to hire you. Like me, like me, like me, like me. That's very different than I want them to feel hope for themselves or someone else that they may know. So they go from hopeless to hope. And then they might come have a conversation with me to relieve that hope, either if it's, oh my God, I'm terrified of speaking, and I come in with this new way and now they have hope, or I've got this friend who's really meant to speak and they're hopeless right now, and you just gave me hope. Can I introduce you to? Yes, please, absolutely. In the middle, align is aligning our body, our breath, and our energy for our most expressive self. And for the empaths, it's the energy piece that often is most helpful. When we're feeling all that stuff, we have a tendency to kind of pull our energetic bubble in and make it really small and try to like suppress and hold all this energy down, which makes us feel like we're literally going to explode in the face of everyone else's emotions and our own. And if We can wrap our energetic arms around the space and actually expand our energetic bubble to fill the size of the whole room. Now it feels like there's magic and stars bouncing instead of something that is so intense it's going to make us explode.
Gosh, as you were, like, describing that, I felt it almost. I don't know
Me
about you, Alina. I
too.
was like, "Oh," like, gosh, it just, like, shifted my energy. Oh, I love that. I was like,
I love that because I'm like, it is possible to transform the energy when we're connected virtually. It feels different than it does when we're in person, and it's still possible. Just like there are plays in the theater that are really great as plays, where people are going to be together in the same space, having a shared experience. And then movies are made sometimes out of plays, sometimes out of books. And it's a very different experience to look at something that's separate. And a lot of times the books and the plays and the movies are all amazing creations when they're each done really well and owning and leaning into what works in that format.
mhm.
I took a deep breath when she was saying that,
Yeah.
and through practice, I've learned the importance of breathing, right? Which I think so many of us take for granted, or we underestimate the importance of breath work and breathing. And a little sidebar, I recently had an MRI. I've had some back issues and finally was able to get my first MRI. And I'm not claustrophobic, but I'm not a big fan of, feeling crammed. And so I get into this thing and I keep doing my breath work. And part of it is just taking these deep breaths to sort of calm my nerves and get through it. And so you wear these speakers. And so the technician was like, okay, I need you to not take any deep breaths. I need you to, breathe normally. And I'm just like, buddy, I'm going to have a panic attack. I can't just breathe normally. I'm doing my breath work. Anyhow, it was the longest 30, 40 minutes of my life.
Mm.
And it really was a reminder of how important it is to breathe, and to do the breath work and take these deep breaths to get you through whatever it is, a difficult time or a difficult, presentation or whatever. Like even doing this, I breathe a lot.
Mhm.
I take deep breaths and it calms my nerves a little bit.
And
Yeah.
I forget that. I, those MRI machines, just validating, even if you're not claustrophobic, I thought I was losing my mind, and so maybe the breathing was something I should have remembered when I was in it. I actually, on that same note, I'd love to ask you, like, a very practical work question, for a friend. Um, when there are a lot of people that I know, that, get very nervous when there's a big client presentation coming up or just a meeting that is gonna be a little tense, etcetera. And so a lot of us, we get into that whole, I'm anxious, I need to calm down." Obviously, there are alternatives there. But any practical strategies that we can use in our day-to-day work when we're at work before this type of meeting that's really bringing up all these nerves, that can help us, that you can share with
Yeah.
us?
Setting the attention, even when I'm going to speak for a few minutes in a meeting and I don't know when, setting an emotional intention is helpful for that. Warming up for it. So doing some breathing and particularly making sound exercises because sound transforms. It takes the anxiety is excitement without anywhere to go. If I start going or making inhaling and S sounds in particular in yoga, it's a grounding pranayama. It doesn't use the voice in the same way. So I would do both an S and a Z. That
Uh-huh.
starts to give that nerve excitement somewhere to go
Mm.
in order to be ready for it. And I love telling people that some of the stuff that we're feeling is our body's way of trying to fuel us for the event, and we had the Olympics last summer, 2024 in Paris. And when a swimmer is on the starting blocks, waiting to swim potentially the race of their life, they are feeling a whole lot of stuff. And they know a bit more than a speaker or someone going into a meeting at work, that their body is giving them more adrenaline. The heart is pumping faster, because if it doesn't, they will not come anywhere close to winning that race.
Right.
They need the more. And if we can remember when we're going into an important meeting, my body's doing this to try to give me a little more, because there's something more going on here. So it's not all bad.
Yeah. Wow, what a reframe. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else before we move on? Anything else you'd like our listeners to know that we haven't touched on?
It's the title of my book, Your Voice Matters.
Mm.
And I'll say it again, because there's probably a listener going, oh, she means everybody except me. Your voice matters. There are people who need to hear what you have to say. So for every one person who's not going to pick up what you're putting down, you're not everybody's cup of tea. There are a lot more people who are looking for what you've got to bring. So find your voice, share your voice with the world. You are a unique and beautiful soul with a one-of-a-kind presence and a one-of-a-kind purpose and voice.
Okay. I love that. Thank you, Lauri. This conversation has been eye-opening. And I think understanding that the fear of speaking often stems from a fear of being seen helps us all take a meaningful step towards building a deeper, more authentic connections, whether it's on stage or in our daily lives, as you mentioned. And we appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us today. So, Lauri, can you tell listeners where they can find you if they want to work with you or to learn more?
Absolutely. Best place to find me is my website, which is voice-matters.com. And then if you're into LinkedIn, YouTube, or Instagram, those are all there if you scroll to the bottom of any page.
Awesome. And we'll also link everything in our show notes and our Instagram post.
Thanks, Lauri. So at the end of each episode, we like to ask one another and encourage you, the listener, to ask yourself what is bringing you joy lately. And so, Lauri, as our esteemed guest, would you care to go first?
Yes. I love the holiday season. The month of December is like my favorite. And what is particularly bringing me joy, I don't have them turned on yet. They would be behind me. White Christmas lights.
Me
Little,
too.
like the old fashioned, not LED, the old fashioned white twinkly lights bring me so much joy. And when they start going up around the neighborhood, I point and I'm like, Christmas tree, Christmas lights, Christmas tree, Christmas holiday lights. Oh man. Yeah.
That's so cute. I love Christmas. It's so funny. You guys are white Christmas light. Are
I
you
know.
thinking? Are you
All I
thinking of
have
me?
in my home is just white Christmas trees. Like they're just white lights all throughout my home.
And then all I have throughout my home are multicolored lights. Like the tackier, the better. It reminds me of my childhood. Awesome.
It's not tacky, it's nostalgic.
Thank you for that reframe. All right, Alina, you want to go next?
I guess staying in the theme of my MRI, I've had really bad back pain for a couple of years, and it was really debilitating. I wasn't sleeping properly. Even bending over to put on my pants was a production. So I got a cortisone shot, and because it was either pain or cortisone or surgery, and surgery is out of the question. And so let me tell you, this cortisone shot has been life-changing. I'm sleeping. I would say 70% pain-free.
Wow.
And when you're in physical pain, you're not a happy camper. So It's been bringing me a lot of joy lately. And I'm just very grateful to my body for sticking with me and getting me through this pain, because it's definitely been a journey. So I'll say being pain-free is bringing me joy lately.
It has been a journey. I've seen you in a lot of pain, and I'm so glad that that shot has helped.
Yes. How about you, Ange?
I will say, I'm on an acupuncture Chinese medicine kick lately, and this is not about acupuncture, but one of my favorite herbal brands from Organic Olivia, she makes this juice. She calls it a juice. It's called Peace Juice, and it's a spray. And speaking of public speaking, it's something where like as needed, it has some Chinese herbs in it that are supposed to calm you down. So before like a presentation, I'll do 6 sprays and I'll just like let it savor it and then take some deep breaths. And I honestly think it does help, even if it's placebo. But yeah, Peace Juice. Peace Juice brings me a lot of joy, and I've been using it quite a bit lately.
Ooh, can I add one more little public speaking thing to that?
Oh, sure. Yes.
So, of all of our senses, the one that like processes the fastest is smell. So if you also started spraying that on yourself after it went well, after you were feeling like you were in a groove, like you're like, oh, I'm so exhilarated, that's done. Spray it then it's like you're doubling the impact of it, because it's like if you smell cookie, if your grandmother made cookies that you loved and you smell those cookies 50 years later, you have an automatic, oh, I feel like I'm being held by my grandma. You can do that with the smell of the thing that like you've been doing before, it's been going well, and then you do it after, and then the next time you smell it before, it's going to increase the impact of what that scent is already doing for you.
I love it. I love that. Thank you.
Myself.
Thanks, Lauri.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you again, Lauri, for being here and taking the time to be with us. We're so honored, and certainly are confident that our guests have taken something really valuable away from this. So thank you again.
Lauri, thank you ever so much. It's truly been an honor. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Well, if you've enjoyed this episode and you like the show in general, please share this episode or any episode you've enjoyed with someone you know. It goes a long way, and we appreciate all the love and support. With that, that's all we have for you today. See you next time on Tell Me More and Then Some. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please rate and review to help us reach more listeners.
To learn more, make sure to follow us on all the socials at More and Then Some Pod.
Join us for new episodes every Wednesday on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Until next time, stay curious, learn more, and talk about it.